Welcome back to Texas in Focus. My guest on the program today is Tomas Navia. He is the producer of Print It Black, which is making its world premiere this weekend at the Dallas International Film Festival. Tomas, thank you so much for joining the program today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start with this before we jump into the movie. Um, I know what a director does. I know what a writer does. I know what an actor does. What does a producer do on a movie?
Ooh, that's a great question. A producer can do a lot of different things. This doc comes from ABC News. We are more on the news side of things, but we do documentaries as well. So for us, producer is a more all-encompassing role. We do everything from finding and pitching stories, sourcing it, doing the reporting, being in the field, overseeing the shoots, coming back, overseeing the edit, scripting, and sort of figuring out the narrative. Producer roles here and in the news doc world definitely span all sorts of roles.
And figuring out the narrative, had to be really interesting on a movie like Print It Black, because the way I would describe this movie is, you're exploring a tragedy from really an unexplored angle through the eyes of the folks at the Uvalde newspaper. Tell us a little more about Print It Black and what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. So Print Black follows the journalists of the Uvalde Leader-News. It is the only newspaper in the county of Uvalde. So it is considered, Uvalde County is considered a news desert. And, they are now, after the Robb Elementary, May 24th, 2022 school shooting, they are now faced with covering perhaps the biggest story that has ever happened, and it's in their backyard. To compound that, one of their staff members, Kimberly Rubio, who was a journalist for many years at the paper, also lost her 10-year-old daughter, Lexi, in the shooting. So Printed Black follows Kimberly's rise to prominence as a national activist and advocate for gun safety reform. And it also follows, her second family, the staff at the Uvalde Leader-News, covering not only what she's doing in her fight for accountability, but also what's happening in the community at large. And so through these two storylines, through these two groups' lived experiences, we also kind of see what happens in the community and how there is sort of a rift that emerges as some people are advocating for change and others want to sort of keep the status quo.
And in this movie, of course, as you mentioned, one of the subjects, Kimberly Rubio, one of the people you follow most closely in the movie, is the mother of a school shooting victim. So I just wonder, how do you tell a story like what happened in Uvalde and, properly handle it with the right amount of sensitivity?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think some context is needed here too. This is born out of a larger initiative by ABC News, which was called Uvalde 365. That was a commitment by the network to remain in and cover Uvalde after the Robb Elementary shooting for at least a year. It's been ongoing. We're reaching the 2-year mark next month. And, we had various projects that came out of it. So we were following multiple different families. We were following different survivors. We were following the newspaper. And throughout all of it, I think we approached it with um, a lot of sensitivity. We always let the subjects lead. We were never pushing them to do things they were not comfortable with. We always made sure that if something was uncomfortable for them, that if they could voice their concerns, and we would of course respect that. So we definitely led with empathy in everything that we did. And I think that's so important because so often as journalists, we and documentarians, we go to places that are not our hometowns, that we have no actual relation to, and we're there to cover something that is probably the worst thing that somebody has ever experienced. So it's really important to go in there with empathy first.
That's very interesting. You pretty much, I had a follow-up question. I think you kind of answered it there because, you go into a community like Uvalde, there's going to be people that want to talk, people that really don't want to talk. Um, and you kind of answered it there, but how do you handle that in the right, most measured way, making sure these interviews are conducted the right way?
Yeah, well, of course, when we sort of pitched everybody who we were trying to follow that we would be there for a year, I think it allowed us to build trust over time. So often we would spend time with subjects without the cameras rolling, just to get to know them, just to be around town. It's a small town, Uvalde. It's around 15,000 people. So you see everybody. You're going to the grocery store, you might see one person, and then the next day you'll see a different person at, the gas station or whatever it may be. So, over time you do build more trust, and then you do one interview and you follow somebody to an event, or you shoot a scene, and then they trust you more and they understand that you respect their boundaries. And so it's you know, a process where you're collaborating and working with subjects.
And this movie has so much to say. I mean, even beyond the tragedy itself, there's a lot in here about, distrust of local media, news deserts, some stuff in here about structural inequality in Uvalde. What do you want the ultimate takeaway to be for viewers?
You know, I think Print Black is a hyper-local look at very national issues, both the epidemics of mass shootings in schools and just in communities in general, and then also the dwindling of local journalism. I hope that people walk away from this film having a deeper sense of the actual reality that happens after these events in a community and the importance of local journalism to that. You know, one of the things that we do in the film is that we utilize the reporting of the Uvalde Leader-News. We show excerpts from their articles, we show headlines to really make the newspaper become an integral part of the storytelling to convey the information that perhaps sometimes is not necessarily known by people who don't live in Uvalde.
And of course, your main subject, Kimberly Rubio, a journalist herself, and it's very obvious why. I think her charisma just comes off in every interview that's done for the movie. What was it like working with her?
Yeah, Kimberly Rubio, I mean, is such a driving force in the film, but also in the community for change. So, you know, we had multiple producers that were in the field. Megan Hundell Street worked really closely with Kimberly. You know, I filmed with her as well, and it's just, you know, it's hard to not be in awe of everything that she does and her ability to keep going in the face of such a horrible tragedy. And we see it in the film. We see, you know, she can be very forceful and get her message across publicly, but she also, of course, has days where, you know, it's a bad day and she still has to move forward and she still has to continue to make sure that people don't forget who her daughter Lexi what is. And and people remember her name and that, you know, she's very clear that, you know, after the shooting, she knew that she didn't want any other parent, any other mother to feel what she's feeling because it's so devastating. And I think that's one of her biggest driving forces, in addition to having Lexi be remembered. And you know, it's just, yeah, like I said, I think it's really hard to not just be in awe of what she has done and her ability to keep going.
And it's a very important story. I hope everybody that's in Dallas this weekend and next week comes to see it because I enjoyed it. Very important story. I hope it gets as many eyeballs on it as possible because I think people need to see it. But I guess that would be my final question. What's the plan to get as many eyeballs as possible on this movie? I know you have the world premiere this weekend. Then where does it go from here?
Yeah, absolutely. So the film will actually be on broadcast, or it'll be, you know, publicly available, and then it will be on Hulu as well to stream after that. So it will be publicly available. I hope as many people as have Hulu can watch it, but also ABC News Live is a free streaming platform from ABC News, so people can access it through that as well.
And we'll definitely include a link to that in the show notes. And with that, that is Tomas Navia. He's the producer for Print It Black, a documentary about Uvalde, which will be making its world premiere at the Dallas International Film Festival this weekend. Tomas, thank you so much for joining the program today.
Thanks for having me.